whereby the sheriff also enters the room, closing the iron door behind. He and the pastor begin to converse. Their words are indistinct. Curious, young Perkins cautiously walks across the room, placing an ear up to the heavy metal door. He begins listening. Behind the door, the sheriff and pastor are involved in a heated debate. "I told you I wasn't in town, and damn it, I wasn't," so voices the sheriff in a bitter but conciliatory tone. "I'm sorry. I can't control the damn fools. When I'm gone, that son of a bitch out there think he's sheriff. You all know why I go off to Jackson? Why, hell, your people are my people. I got family up there. I hate this damn town as much as you do. I'm only down in Musky because I needed the job. What kind of work would them crackers let a colored man like me do in Mississippi, in Jackson, in Musky, if they knew I wasn't white?" The shock of hearing the sheriff confess his true blood causes young Perkins to cover his mouth with both hands. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He quickly glanced at Miss Hazel, who remained in her seat, eyeing him curiously. I know. The pastor's anger begins to cool. "How is Mama?" the pastor softly inquires in a conciliatory tone. "She ain't been well lately. That's why I've been going up there so often. Mama's always asking me to bring you when I come visiting. After all, she's your mama, too." His emotions pricked. The pastor begins to choke up. "I know she ain't been well. I know Mama loves us both. But, the pastor fights back tears. "But the colored folks here in Musky need me. They need a pastor. Jackson's got more churches than it needs. But here in Musky, the colored folks here got nobody. Nobody but me. You know how bad things are here in Musky. How much worse would things be if they didn't have me to pray with them, to preach to them, to give them some kind of hope?" The sheriff puts a question to his half-brother. "I keep the peace. How bad do you think things would get without me? What would happen to me if they found out that I, their own sheriff, was nothing more than just a high yellow So? Jonah is..." Young Perkins presses his head tightly against the door, straining to hear the answer, when suddenly the loud rattling engine of a Model T Ford backfires, frightening the youth, who then rushes back to his seat. "What were they saying?" questions the widow Hazel. Young Perkins looks at her with eyes wide. He wants to tell. He burns to reveal the sheriff's secret. Should I? The young man mulls it over in his mind. "Well," questions the widow. "I couldn't rightly hear, but there was a mite amount of cussin'. Words not fit for a lady like yourself. I reckon I go back and find out what else they saying." Young Perkins once more creeps up to the door and presses his head tightly against it. "It's all that damned tree," voices the pastor with disgust. "They worship the damn thing." "I know," replied the sheriff, his voice denoting a fearful apprehension. "It's alive, you know. You know it's alive. I hate to go near it. It feeds on the lifeblood of the colored folks. It seems to know that I'm not quite white. I can feel its hunger. But as far as I know, it ain't never took the life of a body that been baptized. Was the boy baptized?" The sheriff questions the pastor. The pastor gives no reply. Once more the sheriff questions in a more sterner tone. "Was Jonah baptized?" The pastor offers a feeble excuse. "It's that Silas. Time and time again, I asked that woman of his, Bessie May, to let me baptize the boy, but always, that bastard Silas would interfere. He wouldn't allow the boy to go to church, let alone be baptized. Then it's on you, ain't it?" accuses the sheriff. "Every life that tree takes, every drop of Negro blood is rightly on your hands. Period. Ain't it, brother?" The word brother is spoken nastily, hurtful, revealing an animosity of long standing between the two. Something in their youth had created a deep wound, some painful scar that had yet to heal. "So, let me give you a word of advice," the sheriff cautions. "If I was you, I'd get every young colored boy in this county baptized, starting with that little fella out there. Don't forget the deputies saw 2 black boys. I'll tell you what," says the sheriff. "I'll say they caught the boy, and they took him down the county, down to the juvenile hall there. Then after a spell, I'll say the boy took sick. Then you make up a story about you went up there to see the boy and prayed with him just before he died. That ought to make his folks feel better." Well, the pastor uncertain. "Well, nothing," says the sheriff, as he gives the pastor a friendly slap on the back. "That's that." Finding the conference at an end, the young man rushes back to his seat and takes his place next to the young widow. The heavy iron door opens. The two emerged from the cell. "Jonah? Is he okay?" queries the widow with concern. Now, just simmer down." The sheriff responds, "I didn't rightly remember the boy at first, but the pastor here reminded me. I guess I forgot at first, but he helped me to remember." "Ain't that right, pastor?" says the sheriff, in a tone that attempts to reassure the group. The pastor, he remains silently gazing down at his shoes. With a strained expression, he replied with a soft, "Yeah, I reckon so." The young widow is puzzled by the pastor's behavior, but not young Perkins, who had heard all. If to punish the pastor further, the sheriff once more lazily walks across the room and takes a seat in the high-back wooden swivel chair. Thus he resumes his former position, placing his feet again on the edge of the roll-top desk, and continues sipping from the half-empty bottle of soda, looking at the pastor, who nervously fans himself with his new fedora. His eyes not wishing to reveal his heavy heart, he continues gazing down. In order to inflict further humiliation, the sheriff encourages, "Go head on, pastor. Tell the nice lady what come of that there boy. Ah. Jonah," young Perkins snaps. "My cousin's name was Jonah." "Was? What do you mean, was?" inquires Miss Hazel. "Is he okay? He's not?" Her eyes look to Pastor Jackson for an answer. "No, ma'am. Ain't nothing wrong with Jonah." The pastor's eyes clenched shut tightly as he grits his teeth and grinds out what young Perkins knows to be a blatant lie. "You see, Miss Hazel, Jonah was in town all right. Sheriff says the deputy, well, he's the one what grabbed little Jonah. Sheriff say, deputy. Well, deputy didn't want no harm to come to the boy, so he put Jonah in the squad car and the pastor struggled to continue. He is then aided by the sheriff, who finishes the lie. Deputies say, the judge charging the boy with trespassing, say he got 90 days. The boy got off lucky, I say. So now they got him down there in the juvenile hall, there in Parker County." Miss Hazel emits an audible gasp of disbelief. Oh my Lord, 90 days, you say?" Her eyes questioning the pastor. Placing his fedora on his head, he mumbled incoherent words and simply walks by the two exiting the office. He walks alone at a brisk pace, all the while angrily murmuring to himself. Young Perkins and the widow Hazel remain in the sheriff's office, unsure of just what had transpired, her eyes questioning the sheriff, who merely returns her gaze with a blank expression. The sheriff gives out a long, loud belch as he downs the last dregs of his soda. Eyeing the two coldly, he impatiently says, "Well?" He then callously motions his head in the direction of the exit. The two gaze at each other in uncertainty. As the sheriff once more motions his head toward the door, young Perkins and the widow obey the sheriff's gesture and quietly exit the office. As they do so, the two begin in conversation. "What was that about?" wonders the widow, as she strained to comprehend the unusual behavior between the pastor and sheriff. All the while, her eyes remain fixed on the pastor, who is by now nearly a block away. From his angry gesticulations, it is obvious that he is deeply involved in some sort of debate. As far as they can tell, it appears that the pastor is in a quandary of some kind. Walking in a rapid pace, he removes his fedora and slaps it with his hand several times. Yes, indeed, the pastor is involved in a heated argument with himself. "Pastor Jackson," young Perkins calls out. The young man's shouts fall on deaf ears as the pastor continues walking, his anger all too apparent. He kicks a small stone in his path, sending the small projectile shooting down the road. "I don't think Pastor Jackson's in any mood to tell Bessie May about Jonah. Leastwise, not no time soon," whispers young Perkins. "You're right, little man." The young widow takes young Perkins by the hand. "It's an awful hot day. Maybe we can make it back to the ice wagon before Mr. Grimes leaves." "Yes, ma'am. That's a good idea. He'll give us a lift back." "Wait a minute." Miss Hazel places a finger to her cheek. "We come to get some clothes for you." "I know," says young Perkins with growing unease. "Maybe we should come back again next week. I need no clothes right now, ma'am." She looks down at the young man's face that reflects every bit of nervousness. "Well," suggests the widow, with a wink and a smile, "let's at least get some ice cream. Would you like a nice ice cream cone?" "Yes, ma'am," answers young Perkins with an eager grin.